All right, welcome everyone to this special session of the Strive Life Summit. I'm here with Dr. Sharnael, and I'm super excited to discuss the science of miracles. So welcome to the panel, Dr. Sharnael.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate being here with you guys, and Happy New Year.
Yeah, I'm really excited about that, actually. Just a fresh start to accomplish lots of things. But let's get into you. I want to know a little bit more about your background. I mean, I know some things because I've looked you up, but maybe just introduce yourself to our audience and, bring us up to speed on how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, my background is actually ministry. So I was a conference speaker, like an itinerant conference speaker for 17 years and traveled all over the world, globe trotted around and did my thing and taught in conference settings, retreats, a lot of churches and that kind of thing. And then it kind of moved into wellness centers and wellness conferences. And but I actually got really sick, and that's how I ended up getting into the wellness space. Is all of that traveling, all the hours, all the imbalance, eating really crappy, not really taking care of myself. And was about, I guess, 7 years of the back end of my my career in that, not doing so great physically, and found a doctor who was an MD, but also did a lot of kind of frequency type biohacking things, which was really uncommon in like the early 2000s. So it was like, well, this is interesting. Things like red light therapy, biofeedback, PEMF, ozone therapy, wasn't really talked about a whole lot, but got me back on the road, that and using frequency basically. And I ended up going back to school. I was so excited and passionate about that. I went back to school, became a naturopathic doctor, was only going to do that for the sake of, reverse engineering me and using that in my conference speaking. And that kind of turned into, helping other people in that space. And then I actually opened up a practice at one point, but it flooded. We had a huge flood here in Louisiana. Got 12 feet of water. I was like, well, that was fast. So went back to the conference speaking and doing consultations online. I was doing consultations online before the whole, pandemic kind of drama stuff. Now it's pretty normal to do that. But yeah, so here I am back again. I did open another small practice, July, so right 2024. But I continue to do online work and conference speak, and I write quite a bit, and just trying to teach people about frequency, about getting back into some basic habits that, maybe our grandparents did pretty normal, that we've maybe lost some of that art, and just helping people connect with God and spirit and the consciousness of who we are and living true and, that kind of stuff. So, and here I am. Now I'm with you, and we're just talking about fun stuff for 2020.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. There's so many things that you got into there that resonate with me. I mean, just this idea that I want to be healthier, right? And a lot of these traditional options, I mean, just going to the doctor, they just want to load you up with prescriptions, right? And that doesn't necessarily treat any kind of root cause, right? It's all kind of these superficial treatments, and I feel like we're getting too much of that, and we've lost our way and our connection to the things that have really worked in the past, right? And so I love that you're bringing it back to, these ancient things that have always existed, these ways of treating illnesses and sicknesses and just better ways of being. And I love that. I think we need more of that in the world, and so I appreciate your message and all that. I want to get into this topic of the science of miracles, because that's so fascinating to me. I'm a believer in God, and so I'm always trying to tap into how can I see more of that in my life. And so maybe just take us down that road, and maybe how you discovered that, and what you found out about it.
Yes, great question, and it's a big one. I'm also a believer in God, and had a pretty big encounter in early 2000 as well, when all this was going on. And yeah, I mean, I've been obsessed with the supernatural. I've been obsessed with, like, you know, when you read the things in the Bible, and you see like instant healings and bilocation and, angels and, that kind of thing, was just like, why are we not doing that like normal? Like, why isn't that now? Why is that talked about by this couple few people that did things that are really cool? And like, where is the disconnect in like us doing those things on a day? And so I've looked at um neuroscience, the supernatural, the quantum field, and trying to kind of look for those equations and that kind of formula to figure out like how we can make that every day. And early 2000, I was just minding my own business. I will tell you, I was in a pretty a lot of different changes at the time, not only dealing with illness, but some personal relational issues, going through a pretty dramatic divorce, which caused, I was on television for 3 years and we lost the show or the contract because of that. And just kind of feeling like, oh my God, like, what am I doing? And trying to figure things out, and really reaching out to God and just trying to figure out what my next step was. And I like walk out of my bedroom one morning and I walk in the living room, and believe it or not, there's these two ginormous beings, like 14 feet tall, in my living room, maybe taller, I choose to know. A very iridescent type, glowing, my only language at the time was angels. Like, I choose to know, like, I don't know to this day really what it could be, but they were standing there. One looked kind of female, one kind of looked male, and there were stacks of books like all throughout my living room. There was a ginormous desk. I was absolutely terrified. uh, they must have picked up on that, and immediately they were like, don't be afraid. And I'm like, I didn't even say anything out loud. They could just catch my vibe or whatever. Everything was telepathic. But basically, I was just really trying to figure out, like, is this real? Am I dreaming? Am I sleepwalking? Very confused, but also terrified. And at one point, the female looking one kind of came around the desk, and she opens up this book. And me being curious, I came around and was like, trying to peer over to see what she was looking at. And she's turning these pages, and it was like this person's name, what they were sick from, how they got healed, what date. And then it was just a line by line by line, like all of these people who had these miracles. And I remember just being like, very overwhelmed. And she looked at me and again didn't say words, but kind of thought this phrase, a question. She said, what do you want? And I said, I want to be a part of that. And she looked over at the other guy and she said, she didn't say words. She just kind of did like, okay. And then he kind of just went, okay. And then she got really stern and serious, and she looked at me and she pointed. And I mean, I felt it, like I still feel it. And she said, tell them they're not truly living unless they're living true. And as soon as she said that, she slammed the book. Everything poofed. It was all gone. I was standing there trembling. I felt like my very core was like vibrating. I was crying uncontrollably. I was shaking. I had to go sit down. I was going through my mind of like, am I crazy? Like, what just happened? Did I make this up? Like, do I need to call a psychiatrist? I was literally still, and all of this information started just pouring through me. And I grabbed the notebook. I start writing down formulas and colors and pictures and just everything that could come to me, because I was so afraid that if this was some sort of dream within a dream, that I was going to forget it when I woke up.
All
And so I
right.
was like trying to like embed it in my soul, like, please remember this, please, please, please. And I didn't wake up unless I'm still dreaming. I don't know. Maybe when this is all still a dream, but I started sharing this with people, and I knew what she said about I knew what she said about living true had so many layers to it. Um, for me, it wasn't just like a little white lie kind of deal, like, don't lie, don't say a little fib, for me, it echoed in my body, like who you hang out with, who you go to school with, or who you work with, who you live with, what kind of mission you're on, what job you have, what you eat, what you drink, like everything matters, literally. And living true can be as big as who you date or who you're married to, all the way down to, are you going to go down this road today to get to where you're going, or are you going to take this road, or are you going to call your mom because you got that little voice that says, or check on this friend that you haven't thought about for a while, and like listening to those little small voices. And I realized too, like, I was given some formulas for quantum physics that were kind of over my head. And I had to literally go and like Google this stuff to see, like, oh my gosh, that's a real thing. And like quantum field and standing waves and echo waves and the biofield, and how our body radiates in this 4 or 5 foot field, but also magnetizes back to us, and how the language of that field has to do with what you're thinking about, what you're talking about, what you're feeling, and how that causes not only a frequency and vibration out, but will pull things to you. So we're constantly creating, and we have that field, but also anything alive has that field. Also, the whole entire planet has that field. And we all have our individual like torrid of pulling in and radiating out constantly, but also every living being that we run into, we're kind of meshing and exchanging, and then there's that collective that we all kind of pile into a big collective synergy of radiating and magnetizing. So this is all creating, it's basically karma. And we can either default create like really crappy things that are not serving us at all, or we can live true and have the best and highest frequency that goes out and start attracting those things. They showed me about mismatching and like frequency hopping and energetic purgatory, and why people get stuck, why I had been stuck, how to unhook from that and like change the loop so we can get a different outcome. Showed us our main signature code, and we all have our own blueprint of our ancestral genetics, mixed with where we are, mixed with the programming of our environment that we're born into, also what we're thinking, talking about, feeling. Our very cells have a projection. So there's a lot into it. And I just put everything down as much as possible and shoved it in a book. And I literally still read this book, Nick, like with fresh eyes. And I'm like, oh, wow. Okay. Oh, I don't remember that. Who said that? Because it doesn't even feel like I did it. It just literally came through me.
Wow, that's incredible. That's incredible. It's also fascinating to me because I believe in that. I mean that everything is energy, and somehow waves are connected with all that. I don't know enough, right? I'm, a novice in all this stuff. So I'm just really, kind of starting my journey into it. But the idea that, yeah, there are these repeating habits or patterns in our lives that keep us stuck. I'm really curious to know about what they told you in terms of getting unstuck and being able to move past these things in your life, because that's so important. I feel like we're constantly kind of weighed down by maybe these negative thought patterns, or I don't know what it is that they told you in terms of breaking free of this, but I would love to hear your thoughts on that.
So they gave me this whole chart, which is in the book, which basically we all start out with a frequency that goes out. And in present, we're I say, I made this up, but it's like we're in A. And if we want to get to, let's say, C, our programming is to set goals. And especially in January, like, it's a big thing to set goals. And I get that, but also a goal by definition means you don't have it yet. You're not attaining it, versus, being already there and seeing yourself there already. And now what's new and different for you? And when we change up the energy of being already there and seeing past the C, D, E, F, G all the way down, there's an imagination factor there, which, our imagination is, imagery is, man, trump and miracles. I mean, it is high up there on the scale of how we create. And so as we imagineer our outcome, then that also changes our income, because as we kind of project energetically where we choose to be and then envision that feeling, the heart is the most magnet part of the whole equation. This has the most pull into the field. And so the stuck part is, a lot of times, number one, people get kind of a mismatch where they may be thinking that they choose to be there and maybe can even envision being there and all of those great things. But if they're afraid of it, or they're afraid they're not going to win, or they're going to fail, or they have some sort of memory that, mom and dad tried that and it didn't work out, or my friend tried that and it didn't work out, then you start having different equations. So you'll have some positive and some negative, and they kind of cancel each other out, literally, in equations. And so we don't get any traction. We don't go forward. We just kind of get stuck in that, like, purgatory. And so when we send out where we want to be, and then our heart is truly feeling it, and we put the feeling into it, where we're actually pretending, tend to, as if it's happening, the feeling of, okay, well, now that I am, I don't know, just make up something, 50 pounds lighter, what's new and different for me? Well, I'm dancing, I'm, working out, I'm hanging out with my friends, I'm walking freely with ease, I'm playing with my grandchildren or my children, I am getting into that size 4 or 6 jean, and really playing with it and practicing envisioning that, but also really honing in on the feeling of it. This goes out into the field, and what happens is there's an echo wave. So we go out, and then the echo wave comes back and says, okay, are there any negatives in the field? Is there any fear? Maybe you're talking about it, but you're thinking the opposite. So you can be thinking, but then you're saying, like, oh, that's not going to happen. Or, yeah, I'm probably going to eat, spaghetti tonight, or, just whatever. Like, you can mismatch in your own self. And, biblically, we talk about in scripture, the witness, or having at least 2 witnesses to everything for things to go on. And I think, in my perspective, the witness is ourself. It's like, yes, there can be outside witnesses or confirmations, but this is the biggest confirmation, is if we are in alignment with what God wants, when we feel it, we talk about it, and we think about it, and that's in alignment, that goes out as a projection. The echo wave comes back and goes, yep, she's really thinking it, she's feeling it also, and she's talking about it. Then it's like, okay, that's a match. And so it goes out further. Ancestral is another one. Number 2 would be kind of where the equations can be taken away, meaning you could be saying everything right, thinking everything right, feeling everything right, but let's say there's some program stuck in there that we're not even aware of. It's some sort of subconscious thing that great grandma had, or a genetic disposition on a health situation or whatever, that could have some negatives, and it will take away. So maybe you won't hit that C target or the D target. You might hit a little short of that because you're not fully in there. But the good news is that can be cleared. We can clear the programming. I do a lot of biofeedback that will clear emotions, genetics, and it can be done remote. So the more we can clear, the more we can do the inner work. Everything's an inside job. The more we can actually not just see the potential and look for it, or hope for it, but actually embody it and walk it out and see the fruit of those miracles happening. And miracles are it's a funny word. We think of miracles that they all just have to be instant, but even scripturally, if you look up the word healing, most of the words where there's the word healing comes from therapeo, which comes from the word therapy, or therapy comes from that word. And so sometimes a healing could be something therapeutic. I mean, through therapy, meaning you got to do it over and over and over for a little bit, make some different choices, make some different practices. Maybe you go work out, maybe you go see a physical therapist, maybe you do red light therapy, whatever it is. I love the lavender lightning approach, which is kind of something that I made up, or actually what they told me. And that's the natural stuff, which is the ancient stuff we talked about. But then there's this whole new kind of electronic thing, this Tesla stuff, where it's like, oxygen therapy and ozone therapy and hyperbaric chamber and all these kind of electric things that are also frequency, just like essential oils or crystals or diet or music. Everything's frequency. And it's the more we can raise that frequency up, the better chance our body is going to be in that alignment and see the fruit and see those miracles happen.
Wow, that's incredible. To consider the ramifications of all this, right? I'm really curious as to that process of clearing out kind of the negative. Maybe dive into that for a second, how that works. And it sounds like you can do it remotely, online.
Yeah, I mean, some of it is just making a new choice. Some of it is if you really go in your inner and you ask, like, what is it that what's required of me? It could be as easy as changing the color of your clothing or changing the color of your bedspread. I've literally worked with people who they don't do well with red, and then they change everything to blue, and it's like total different change. It could be maybe you eliminate sugar out of your diet, or you exercise and get off your butt and actually do something and move. Maybe stop going through the drive-through and drinking all the sodas. And, not you, but personally, there were some changes I made that were not serving me anymore. So that's going to automatically clear a lot of just, some willpower. And will is 400,000 times stronger than spirit. We can actually override spirit with our will. And so, but yes, there's some of those subconscious things that we don't even know are there. And through biofeedback, I could do diagnostics, even long distance, and it could pull up reports and show, like, these are the emotions going on. This is some genetic stuff going on. This is some psychic things going on as far as maybe attack. It could be an electronic issue where, like, the 5G may be affecting the cells. Maybe there's parasites. You might have physical parasites. And the thing that's funny about parasites is we do group parasite cleanses once a month. And we've been doing it for about 6 months. And what I found out is when people were killing parasites within their body, they were also seeing some really interesting results. Like that narcissistic boyfriend just finally gave up. And maybe the job boss situation where the guy was really bullying or the girl was really bullying, all of a sudden stopped bullying. Or different weird stuff, different harassment stopped. And when I really started looking into it, it made sense because we all have our cell projection. But if we're hosting parasites physically, they all have their projection too. And that projection is, hey, I'm a good victim, cancel clear. And so it puts out in the energy, hey, come on over here. And people will only submit to your lowest common denominator. So when those equations are going out, they can on purpose see that and connect, and or sometimes it's not even on purpose, that they're just doing them, and they're realizing, like, hey, she's a good mark. I'm going to take advantage of this, or he or she or whatever the situation. And the next thing you know, you're being taken advantage, not you, but somebody is being taken advantage of. And so when we got rid of that and we killed it, that projection went away. And guess what? They started attracting like loving, kind relationships, people who gave back, people who actually had equal partnership and treated people with respect. And that wasn't something that I was really going for when we started doing physical, parasite cleanses. But I was like, look at that. I mean, I started seeing it over and over and over again, and everyone's coming back. And so I started asking people, excuse me, are you seeing any changes in this, this, and this? And they're like, you know what? Actually, I am. My sister doesn't harass me anymore. Or, my brother kind of quit doing this, or, whatever the situation. And I was like, that is so cool.
That's so fascinating. I've heard that in other countries, parasites are a normal thing that people talk about and they cleanse them, and but for some reason here in the U.S. it's never talked about, I feel like, and so I'm sure a bunch of us are living with parasites. Who knows? Scary to think about, but I'm sure if you clean that out, get rid of that, I'm sure it will make a huge difference in your life. So I think that's really interesting how that is possibly connected to all this. But I love this concept of how everything is frequency and attracts different things. I'm again, trying to learn more about it because I think there really is something to it. I mean, just from what I've seen. So I love hearing your stories. I love hearing the success that you're having with your clients. We're just about up on our time limit. Do you want to let people know where to connect with you?
Absolutely. And just, I want to thank you too, because with all the bombardment of media and just negativity in the world, something like this summit is such a lifesaver and just gives people hope, gives people encouragement. It goes against the stream of, all the other stuff that's coming. And so I appreciate you and your mission and doing this every year and getting people together and collaborating and just trying to send out a different signal, because this is big. This is really big what you're doing. And so thank you and for letting me be a part of that. But yes, you guys can find me at drsharnael.com. Dr. Sharnael is DRSHARNAEL.com. I have biofeedback on there. I have other services on there. We can do soul audits to see how big your frequency is, how far it goes out, what's kind of going on with there. Is the male female balance? Maybe there's some obstruction that we need to clear for abundance specifically. I like to work on that a lot. Yeah, my books, I have 5 books on there. My podcast is on there. We have a show every Thursday where we like to talk about fun things like the paranormal and, miracles and things like that. But I would love to work with anybody who's interested, and especially in this new year coming up. This is our year to really see some things. Don't listen to all the doom and the gloom and all the stuff out there. We can come above that. We can rise above that. And just the group within this summit, we can actually cause a tipping point. It just takes a few of us. But to stay in that positive and to hold that as a standing wave can do amazing things literally on the earth. And so it's just about joining together with things like what you're doing, Nick. I really appreciate you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate your encouraging words and your positive message. I agree with you. We need more of that in the world. And for anyone listening, we do have your speaker profile on our website, so you can go there to connect with Dr. Sharnael. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. And yeah, hopefully we connect again soon.
Absolutely. Have a beautiful day.